Okay, so I was going to jump into this in the last video, but it's too good and there's too much in this. So in this chapter, chapter 2, Girls at Home, on page 54, she goes into parents can know too much. This is controversial, and I know somebody may take some shots at me on this, but I'm going to come at it from a mental health perspective. I've been dealing with this for 12 years with teen girls. This is a universal issue that gets brought up in individual counseling, group counseling. When I teach in schools, this comes up. This question comes up every single time I ask girls to send me questions, and it's about parents knowing too much and privacy. Huge issue, especially in the digital age. And so I happen to very much agree with what Dr. D'Amour says, that parents often know too much. You have this technology now that allows you to see things that we just didn't have growing up, and we have to be honest about that. We didn't have our parents following us around listening to every conversation, and thank God, right? We didn't want them listening to every conversation. They weren't even, when we had the phone to our ear for 10 hours talking to people at night, they weren't even sitting around listening to that. They didn't know what we were talking about. But now that you guys can read the text messages, track them and where they're going, it's nonstop. And I will tell you, it generates a lot of stress and pressure for girls. And I'm a big believer in privacy. I know that's not the popular opinion, but I think for healthy development, girls have got to have some privacy. And they got to have more privacy than you probably want to give them. Just because you can access it doesn't mean you should. Now, there's always the outlier case. There's always situations where a girl is getting in trouble and something's going on. Then yes, I'm not saying you never give her privacy. But if she does not have reason, she's not been giving you issues, then we need to give her some privacy. And so I just don't think that having access to every little thing she says or does can be helpful. So one of the things that Dr. D'Amour says, and I love it, it says, another possible response to discovering a trove of online obscenity would be for parents to separate what they found from where they found it. So she's talking about when you go on and you scroll through her text messages and your 12-year-old is dropping F-bombs left and right, and you are freaking out thinking, this is not my child, right? So she may not be doing this in front of you, but she's saying this to her friends, or she's calling her friends the B word, or she's using just foul language in general. Like, I know we don't want that. And if you have any, religious background at all, like that just takes it up another notch. But the reality is kids are going to curse and they're going to say stuff and they're going to talk in a way to their friends that they're not going to talk to you. And we have to cut them a little bit of slack on that. I just believe that. You can't micromanage every word that comes out of her mouth. It's not healthy. It creates, again, anxiety. And I will tell you the number one thing it creates, sneakiness. You want a girl to go undercover, start micromanaging all of her tech. And I promise you, they will outsmart you in 3 seconds. They will find a way. Every single one of them does. Every client I've ever had that's gotten in trouble, I'm going to rat them all out. They all get around it. All of them. It's just the way that it is. So the more you micromanage this stuff, the more you're going to push underground. That's what you do not want ultimately, because that's when they start making poor decisions just to spite you. And you may not believe me in that, but I literally had a kid in my office this week say, I only did that because she would not stay off my booty about it. So I did it. And yes, did I talk to her about shooting yourself in the foot and what that looks like? And now you're screwed things up for yourself because you wanted to get back at mom because mom was snooping around in your stuff. Like, this happens, and the girls talk about this. So this chapter and this section I think is just amazing. So another thing she says, and And I totally agree with this, and I know you may not, but I'm going to tell you as a mental health professional, if you want relationship with your daughter and you want communication with your daughter, I'm not saying best friends, but I'm saying you want some form of relationship. She says the same thing. If you are checking up on your girl's digital activity, it is best to let her know. You got to let her know. Don't be sneaky like she's being sneaky. Why do we want to sometimes just get them, just catch them? I see that attitude with parents sometimes, and I think, how's that helping her? Like, I understand if you want to check her stuff, but tell her you're going to check the stuff, because that way at least she knows, maybe I should consider, mom's probably going to check my stuff. Like, I've known girls that have told me, my dad works in cybersecurity, so I'm not doing anything. I know he's checking my stuff. So it's always better to say, we're going to check it. But we don't want to just be in this constant, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you mode. Those girls, they're going to set you up to get them, and it may not be pretty. And we don't want it to be harmful either. We don't want them making these intense emotional reactions and responses to you because they're afraid you're going to try to get them in trouble. It's not healthy. So page 58 goes into, it's not always better to know more. And she says, if I had a simple solution to the challenge of supervising digital denizens, I don't even know what that word is. Sometimes she gets a little too medical for me. I'd offer it. Until then, I can tell you that decades of being a practicing clinician have convinced me that the most powerful force for good in a young person's life is having a caring, working relationship with at least one loving adult. And I will amen that all day long. So let me say that again. The most powerful force for good in a young person's life is having a caring, working relationship with at least one loving adult. That means trust has to be there. That means you've got to give them some privacy. You've got to be honest with her. That's super important. So we're looking at, do you just want to check up on her, track her, get in her stuff all the time, or do you want to have a relationship with her? Because there's going to have to be a healthy balance there for it ultimately to work. Obviously, we want safety. I would never teach against safety. But we also have to be very careful that we're not letting Dateline run our lives. Those are extreme examples. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I can honestly tell you from what I know, I can count less than one hand how many of my clients were talking to like adult men or the stuff that you would see on TV. And really only one situation was ever anything like what you would see on TV. I never have had that. And so we got to be careful about letting Dateline and Lifetime movies and all of that kind of stuff dictate the fear of what's going on, because there's a lot of healthy stuff going on too. It's not all horrible. And so this chapter is really, really good about that. And how you approach it is going to be everything. So I wanted to just do that one a little separate because I know it's controversial, but at the same time, I'm very passionate about making sure that you give her some privacy. She's got to have some privacy. And yeah, check up on her stuff every once in a while, but just tell her ahead of time that you're going to do it. And I don't mean like, hey, today I'm going to check your phone. No, because then she's going to run in and she's going to delete everything. It's when I give you the phone and we're going to have these conversations monthly, just reminder, I do check your phone. I am going to look at certain things, but we just don't want to be constantly just checking all the time. Unless she's broken some serious trust, she's misused the phone. And I'm not going to rabbit trail into this because I talk about it in the essentials under discipline. But if she doesn't do her homework, deep diving into her phone, that's not an appropriate response. If she is using her phone inappropriately, deep diving into her phone is an appropriate response. So I want to throw that out there. as just a little bit of help. Would love to have a conversation about this. And in fact, I probably am going to make this topic one of our mom groups. So pay attention to that. I'll do a mom group at some point where just one of the groups on the monthly call, we're going to talk about this subject because I'm that passionate about it. And I think it's important. And I think it's one of the number one things that's wrecking relationships with parents right now and teen girls.